Good evening. Let's call work session to order. Items for review and discussion.
Good evening. Our first item tonight is to talk about future general obligation bonds for street reconstruction projects, and Greg Rokos will be presenting on that today.
Good evening. I have a very short presentation for you. So if you're expecting a long one, I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint you. So by the numbers, we started street preservation about 3 years ago. In 2019, the city hired Stantec. They're a company that actually drove a van across all the streets in the city and rated them, told you what the surface was, told you how the base was, and came up with basically a PCI, tells you the overall quality, pavement condition index. And ours was a 46.4. Okay, so that's not a really good score. It actually rates us as poor. So at that point, the city decided to look at having a street reconstruction project, which we'd actually mill the streets down to the base. Some streets be all the way to the base. Some streets needed 3 or 4 inches off. Some streets just need 2 inches off. So the desired score is basically 80 or higher. So that's what started the concept of having a street. Some people call it street preservation, street reconstruction program. And that was started in 2019. And at that time, we went ahead and issued bonds. It went to the voters. Voters passed it. And in this bond, we've done 17.1 miles of road, 48,000 feet of curb repair, 113 ADA ramps, and we worked in 22 different subdivisions. So there's a lot of different things we've been able to do. We are actually wrapping up that program right now. This is the 3rd and final year of it. And so just kind of give you an idea of the before and afters. Here's Terry Avenue, what it looked like before we did the work, and then after. Cambridge. Here's East Avenue before and after. And you can see the dramatic change in the look, and it's actually more than that, it's structurally sound now. A lot of these, when they milled it, they only had found 2 or 3 inches of asphalt just on top of mud or dirt. And we milled out the dirt and then was able to pave back a normal residential street. Here's Colburn. You can see some of the streets when we actually take the curbs out and replace the curbs and pave the street, it looks like a brand new street in the neighborhood. Spring Valley Road. So what we're looking at now is continuing the program. Since we're out of bonds, we have the capacity to issue more bonds for road work. We're looking at having a 2022 bond issuance to provide more repairs. This would do approximately 24 miles of road, about 100,000 feet of curb, and this is right now is very dependent on the cost of oil. If you notice, oil prices, or as you go to the pump, gas prices are much, much higher than they have been. And so if oil keeps going up and it goes up to $90 a barrel, the amount of streets we're going to be able to do is going to go down, because this is really a totally fuel-driven business. The streets are oil. It takes oil to run the trucks. It takes oil to run the paver. It takes oil to run the whole thing. And so this is kind of what we're looking at. This is planned with $18 million in the program, and then we left $2 million to the side to begin with, because we have asked for some federal dollars for a couple different projects. And if the federal dollars come through, we'd like to have a little bit of money to be able to do matches, so we'd be able to build those projects. And so this would be a $20 million ask. By doing this, we'd be able to bring our PCI up to 70, which would get us from fair to satisfactory. And then there'd be about $10 million, maybe $10 to $12 million left to finish the reconstruction program of all the streets that were outlined in the Stantec report. One of the other things that we do in this next round, we'd actually run the van again to make sure that we're on target and we can develop curves for every street, because once we know the curves, we know exactly when streets need to be paved and repaved. After the 3rd issuance, we would then need $1.5 million per year in our operational budgets, which we average right now about $600,000, to keep paving streets, to keep them in that same exact condition, to keep maintaining things. And so that is basically our program, and we're looking to you to make sure that you'd want us to go out for a bond issuance for the spring. Is the best way of putting it.
I just want to add a little bit of information. So our assessed value last year increased $23 million, and that has raised our capacity, our general obligation bonding capacity. And so that, with that increase in capacity, the city could issue $21,480,000 of bonds next year. And also, we would be able to do that with a no tax increase. So the increase in that assessed valuation also increases the amount of money that our current levy would bring in. And so it would be a no tax increase if voters approved that.
Any questions? Go ahead.
You indicated that you'd have the van come back out and how much are we talking, how much is that gonna cost? Or was part of that included in the original?
In our estimate for this next one, it's in there. It's only about $60,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
How long will these streets we just got done, is that every 15, 20-year cycle, or?
That should be the normal cycle. Now, the wear and tear on the surface may change a little bit, so that's why that $1.5 million is for milling off just the surface and putting the surface back down over time. So we'll just see how they wear. Every street wears a little differently depending on traffic.
One of the things I noticed is everything we've looked at was mostly the city streets and not the arterial streets, like 163rd, especially 163rd out in our neighborhood. That seems like it keeps getting patched and repatched. I don't know where it sits on your list.
Yeah, the program is really made up for residential streets to start with.
Okay.
And streets like 163rd Street is something we're gonna have to address as we go through. Because you're right, it's getting cut mainly from some of those water lines.
Well, I just know that's like a pretty heavy traveled street, and I'm assuming a street like a Spring Valley coming through Belray Boulevard carries a lot of traffic, is gonna be repaired and replaced more often than another side street would be, because they don't get the traffic flow on it.
Correct.
Okay. So that $1.5 million would maintain like Spring Valley, or you're just talking maintaining the other side streets?
It'd be things like Spring Valley.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Currently 600,000. Where's the anticipated other 900,000? What's the plan there for the maintenance part of it per year?
Well, part of it would come through changes in revenue that we'd have, and some of it would have to just be changes in how we prioritize our money.
That's fine, but I just need to know that there's nothing in here that's built in to do that. We've got to plan that. We spend this money, we definitely want to keep it up. We don't want
Correct.
to get back in this position again if we can help it. So.
One of the things that is really helping is Chewy, then the sales tax that will be generated from Chewy. That has made a huge difference to our budget and this year's budget, and we only estimated a partial year of sales. That has not happened yet this year. We should be seeing that by the end of this year, and even so, our sales tax revenue is up this year over last year, and that's without Chewy's sales. In next year's budget, we will be estimating the entire $80 million of sales in next year's budget, and that will also help increase the revenues in the street fund to be using for preservation.
Yeah, I just want to feel like it is financially feasible, and if it isn't, I want to go to work on how to make it that way.
Yeah.
And that comes from work certainly from staff. It also comes and going to be expected from us too, for planning. So that's really the keynote as to why and what we're going to have to do to make this happen. So I definitely have always supported infrastructure, so long as we're bondable ability to consider this as well as anything in the future that we see or at least foresee coming up. I think we need to move forward because we have got a pretty good jump on this. And we certainly need to move forward on the planning of this $1.5 million, which is another 900 right now. And again, we'll probably go up as well. So we need to keep that in mind too for the future.
Go ahead.
Sheila, do we have an estimate about what the assessed valuation is going to increase with the new warehouses? Do you have an idea what we're talking about here? Because it should be substantial.
Yes, it should be substantial. I don't have the exact amount, but for future years, once we deplete this money, the new apartments that are coming, the new residents that will have personal property, own personal property, that will be living in those apartments, and then just the manufacturing equipment in the warehouses are going to help increase our assessed value even more.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Does this street repaving, does it also include the line painting and crosswalk painting and all that kind of stuff? The accessory stuff other than curbs?
Yeah, so we pave the streets, we put curbs in, we put the ADA ramps in, and if there's striping, we'll put the striping back.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What are we doing communication-wise as letting people know when their street is coming up, things like that?
So for this year, we put out a schedule of what's going on, and then every week, so you should know that citywide what we're going to do. And then every week, we post an update for on Facebook that shows where the contractor is going to be working, and the contractor also has to put door hangers up 48 hours before they do the work.
I'm going to bring up an old subject with you now. Speaking of paving, what about the railroad tracks? We never really went back and finished all that based on my memory. We were supposed to have the railroad tracks done, and then we're going to go back up and finish some of that.
So the three main crossings across the railroad tracks in the city are actually all owned by Smoky Hill Railroad. We were going to let them fix their crossings because they said they were going to fix the crossings, and when they do that, they change the grade. Once the grades are changed and finalized, we are going to be good neighbors and pave up to them. That has yet to happen, and so we haven't done any paving.
It seemed like they're getting worse. I don't know, how do we change that? Can we force them to do it, or can we do it ourselves like we would go mow somebody's yard and send them a bill?
I don't think we have a mechanism to do that. The code allows them to be 1 inch, or I think it's 1 inch below the current tracks. Their tracks can stick up 1 inch above the pavement. And they're pretty close to that. And after that, I contact MoDOT, and then MoDOT has to contact them to get something fixed because they're the regulatory agency over the railroad tracks.
Okay, thank you.
Question I have is, when do we need to make a decision on this for the ballot? And you're talking April next year?
Yes, the April ballot, we would need to make a decision in January.
Okay.
The sooner that you have a decision, the more time it will give staff to prepare educational materials in order to let citizens know the facts about the ballot question. And so I was planning that this would come, an ordinance for the ballot language would come at the next meeting, but if you would like me to hold off, I absolutely can.
Well, I mean, that's up to this body, I don't know.
I mean, I think if we can do a no tax increase, I mean, I think that's something we should move forward with. I mean, unfortunately, we probably all have heard it. I mean, the neighbor down the street got a new street, and then the other people didn't get a new street, and they feel like theirs is worse than their neighbor's was. And so, I mean, I think if we can do a no tax increase, just like the school does all the time, I think that'd be beneficial.
Is everybody okay with that? Or do you want more time to consider this?
And I guess I could go ahead and put it on the agenda next time, and then if you guys wanted to postpone it, or if you
Yeah,
didn't
that's
want to move to accept it, like,
Okay.
we could do that.
All right.
Me, sorry. The next item is an item for the April 2022 municipal election for the council, and then code amendments to adopt new state laws regarding candidate filing. And I should probably just let you all know there is a bit of a difference on the work session. The mayor suggested that we bring all of the items to a work session before they go on the regular agenda. This will give the residents and the public more time to actually be seen that items are coming and increase transparency. And so it's a little bit different than normal, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of why we were doing that.
So I will actually be speaking on this item for letter B. So speaking of election, earlier this year, there was House Bill 271 passed, which changed the filing dates for municipal elections to 3 weeks instead of 7 weeks. The filing
Wait,
now opens.
Say that again. You said
It changes it to 3 weeks for filing time instead of 7 weeks
Really?
for filing. So it now opens 17 Tuesdays prior to the election and closes 14 Tuesdays prior to the election. So it'll open December 7 and end December 28th. It always ran into January before, which was hard. There'll be an ordinance coming before the City Council at the next meeting to amend Section 9-78 of the Code of Ordinances to conform to this House bill and also the Missouri Revised Statutes. What was your comment, Councilman Clark?
That's probably good for you.
Oh, I have no comment. It was difficult when it ran through New Year's and then all the way through Martin Luther King holiday. So this shores it up a little bit.
So on the taxes being filed, I know the first time I ran, I had to show my green card, but I don't think last time I did that, I had to show that my taxes were paid. Has that all been changed? Because you wouldn't have to have your taxes paid by the 28th now.
You have to have everything in compliance by the time you're elected.
So
you
it used to
can-
be the ballot.
Is that correct? Yes, so you can have your name on the ballot, you can run, and if you are elected at that point, you have to make sure everything's in compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody? Question? Go ahead.
Mayor, are there more laws other than the one that's going to be changed?
With that House bill, we also have to change one of our, oh no, I'm sorry. No, with that one, that was just the only thing that changed.
That's the one.
That has to do with this topic.
Okay, thanks.
Additionally, I do want to also inform the council at the next meeting, there'll be an ordinance coming to call the election for the April 2022 election, because there's 4 expiring council member positions. And that's a routine ordinance that we bring to call the election to set the date.
What date is that, do you know?
It will be April 5th.
There we go. Anybody have any questions on item B? Other than what we've discussed? Okay.
The next item is the final plat for the Mills subdivision for the Belton Cass Regional TDD Mullen Road project. This one, actually, you have a item, is it on, later on the agenda? On the agenda, regular agenda. Typically, what we're going to do, if it's on the work session, you won't see it until the next council session, but this one was time sensitive, and Greg is going to talk about this one.
So for the TDD is working on building or designing and building the section that goes from the railroad tracks down to the roundabout at Cambridge. And as part of that project, right-of-way was needed from the Mills property. The Mills property is the northeast corner of Cambridge and Mullen. There's a significant amount of right-of-way that was needed from that property, so much that it actually impact and change the value of the house. And I think that at some point it was determined it was better off to buy the whole property and then plat it to separate it out and then resell the house at what the value of the house was. So the TDD bought the entire property. It's now we're in the process of replatting it. So there'll be a portion that's for right-of-way and a portion that is for the home. And then that'll be, once it's replatted, it'll be recorded by the Cass County Recorder, and then then the house will be able to be sold. And I think that the TDD is in the process. They have an offer on it, and they're wanting to sell it here very quickly. So that's why we're trying to get this separated and sold.
Any questions? Seeing none?
The next item is talking about the update to the emergency operations plan. Chief Lyons is going to talk about this.
The Belton Emergency Management Agency, we refer to as BEMA. Behind me is Lieutenant John Baker of the Police Department. He's got 23 years of experience, and while I'm introducing this plan and telling you a little bit about our BEMA, he's going to be passing out a NEMA guide for elected officials. He also has a copy of the entire plan, including the indexes. The Chief of Police is assigned as the Managing Director, while the primary day-to-day operation or management is under the direction of Deputy Director Lieutenant John Baker. He was appointed on October 26, 2020. He supervises 14 part-time BEMA volunteers, and one of the first tasks that he took on was to revise and update the BEMA operations plan that we're talking about tonight. The Emergency Operations Plan, or EOP, is more commonly referred to as the city's Emergency Operation Plan. These plans have not been updated for several years, so contact and resource information was out of date or it was no longer available. In addition, Lieutenant Baker had added direct references to current Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, documentation and resource allocation guides. He also ensured the compatibility with the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA, and our plan includes an introduction, a basic plan, and 16 different annexes A through Q for all different types of topics. Tonight, staff is recommending the adoption of the formal adoption of this EOP for the City Council, from the City Council, I'm sorry. And this EOP, along with the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA, will enhance our emergency response capabilities. It will promote coordination with state emergency services and the use of available resources to minimize the effects of a major disaster, natural or otherwise, on life or property. It incorporates the principles and processes of the National Incident Management System, NIMS, and the Incident Command System, ICS. Once this plan is adopted, Lieutenant Baker and I will begin the task of training officials and city staff on their roles and responsibilities, and will also conduct periodic practical exercises and more specialized training in order to raise our level of preparedness. If you have any questions, I can answer.
Any questions?
One of the most significant accomplishments besides this EOP, I just thought it'd be a good time to inform you about, was that our current project is the implementation of Commander One software, which is being installed in the next 30 days that will effectively automate all of our outdoor emergency storm sirens within our jurisdiction with the National Weather Service. So for instance, when the National Weather Service assigns a weather warning polygon, which is commonly displayed on weather radar that you see with news services, that will automatically activate our sirens in those areas. And there's other communities that are doing this as well. This software also allows us, in our maintenance vendor, to remote review the operational status of all of our outdoor sirens, so we can indicate whether or not they are functional or they have problems and fix them before we ever need them. It also has a feature where we can actually remote operate those if there was a national incident where we had to warn the public about too.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Is there any additional expense, costs, what have you, making this happen and keeping it going?
There's a ongoing cost. The initial cost was less than $5,000, and then it's about the same to keep it going. And it was also recommended by our vendor that helps us with the maintenance of their sirens. It's ended up being a great process for us.
Go ahead.
Does that come out of the police budget, or is there a BEMA budget specifically?
He has a specific emergency management budget that he and I, Lieutenant Baker and I, manage.
Go ahead.
Didn't they get a grant for that full-time director? Isn't that what it was?
Yes, it's a 50-50 grant.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Anybody else?
I just want to point out that this will come before you via resolution at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Then the next item, Andrea is going to speak about this. It's code amendments that will come to you via ordinance at the next meeting to adopt new state liquor laws.
In August of this year, the Missouri General Assembly passed and the governor signed into law Senate Bill 126. That bill made 2 changes to the state liquor statute. One of them was standardizing Sunday hours of operation. So now Sunday hours will be the same as Monday through Saturday hours. And the second change that it did was to allow a new section in the state statute for retailer packaged alcoholic beverages for consumption off premise. It's commonly referred to as the to-go liquor law. It's not exactly a to-go liquor law, so don't misunderstand it. There's very specific things that are set in place in order to allow that process. But we're also going to present that as an ordinance next week to amend our liquor code.
Any questions?
The next item, Greg is going to give a presentation on the Northwest Belton Comprehensive Plan.
A lot of you maybe remember, several months ago, I made a presentation about the northwest area of Belton and the desire to start doing an area plan. So the area we're talking about is the northwest corner that's in green up there. That's along Holmes and 155th Street and Prospect and Route 58. This is the area that we refer to commonly as the northwest area. Now, why is this starting now? Why is there a bunch of interest? So there are two circles on here. The one yellow one is the inner circle is a radius around 119th and Metcalf. If you look inside that circle and you try to find undeveloped property, you're going to have a very difficult time. The closest undeveloped property to 119th Street in Metcalf is right here in Belton. If you look at the larger radius circle, the center of that circle is Route 69 in College, Corporate Woods area. If you look at it and consider the undeveloped property that's available in that area, there are some way north of K7, about 5 miles north of K10, or it's in Belton. And so when you start looking at it, people are starting to call. And so the question is, how do we get here? How do we get to the point where that we want to do an area plan of this area? Well, people started calling me and started asking, how do we get sewer in this area? How do I start building homes? How do I start developing this area? I've now had my third call and actually met with a family in the exact northwest corner who want to sell that property and actually get it developed. And so when we start looking at it, the biggest problem we have is sewers. And so we don't have any sewers up there right now. And so I met with Kansas City and they said, oh, we're going to build an interceptor to the area. This is several months ago. They met with me last month and they said, here's their actual plan. And if you notice, our area is not in their plan, even though I asked them to consider it. And so our biggest problem is, how do we get sewer from that area down to our plant, or how do I get to Little Blue? And this is one of the aspects of things we need to look at. How do we develop this area? But there's more than that to this. What we need a planning study for is, there's a lot of different property owners up there. There is a need for sewer. We need to know where the street's gonna go and what size of the street's gonna be. We need to know what the land uses are. A lot of people wanna build houses on 10 acres or 20 acres or 30 acres, or do we wanna have 3 houses per acre? We need to know, do we need another school or schools up there? And then if we do, where do we place them? What about fire and police protection? How is that gonna work in that area? And then what about parks and amenities? What sort of amenities do we need? Other things do we need to have along with it? These are things that need to be decided, figure out where we're gonna put them, and come up with a plan. So, we've, got a, scope and fee from Wilson and Company, and next week, or next meeting, we'll be presenting it to you to go ahead and start this area plan to figure out where all these things go, how do we start putting this together, and how do we develop an area plan. Now, that area plan would be then placed into the comprehensive plan for the city, and so that big blob of green that's there will actually have a lot more definition like the rest of the city. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
So why didn't you include the land to the east of Prospect and into the south of 58?
East of Prospect and south.
You got the purple land right there.
North of 58.
Well, the east
Yeah,
of
I
Prospect
got
there,
it.
but also to the, you get out to like Sneed's and all that land. I mean, there's a lot of, there's some land across the street. Or is that,
There's some land across the street. We're starting with the land that's actually in the city,
got you?
and we have $100,000, and so we're trying to use that $100,000 to maximize that area the best.
But that purple at one time was supposed to be an industrial park. Is that still in our comprehensive plan that way?
It is, but the person who owns that is actually interested in developing that into homes. And so we may consider that as part of, when we look at Northwest, to consider that purple area that's south of Markey Business Park.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Can you go back to the map showing the interceptor for Casey Mo?
So that one, right?
Yeah, that works. So just in my day job, there's a 400 some acre plot south of 150, north of 155th, and then east of Holmes that is currently for sale. And I think that's been an enticing factor for developers. So just something to think about is we might abut that. And I don't know what their plan is for that. Will you go back to the other map you had for this? Just
This way?
no, that, yes, okay.
That is a picture of Casey Mo's. If you look where it says Outer Belt, and it's very small in there, it's a little yellow line that goes basically through that creek, and it says Outer Belt Interceptor Sewer. That is the actual sewer that Casey Mo's going to build, and they're going to try to connect the highlighted areas.
Okay.
Now, this plan is probably a 20-year plan. I don't want to get your hopes up that it's anytime soon.
Okay, thank you.
Greg, on that last screen, there's a little square in the middle there. Is that really not in the city limits, or is it just not fill in?
It's not in the city limits. That and the rectangle at the bottom. Don't ask me why. I don't know.
Okay.
Now, Greg, who determines what goes in that development and how it's laid out, and combination of industry or homes, or who makes
So-
that determination?
When we come up with the area plan, we'll put the zoning in there, and you'll vote on the zoning. And so then only you can change the zoning. So if it's zoned for, say it's small lots, regularly, 3 homes or 4 homes to an acre lots, that'll be one zoning, or you could do a zoning where it's large lots, where it'd be 5 or 10 acres to a house. That's what you get to decide.
Anybody else?
Carolyn
Oh,
wants
go ahead, Carol.
I did just want to add that we do have a future land use map that shows what the future land use is. But this will be doing something different, but
That's that one.
So my
You
question
just
to
don't-
you, the current landowners of some of these lands, I know could have interest in building houses or building something on their property, so they're gonna have some type of say on their property, wouldn't they? If they wanna have a subdivision with 2 houses per acre, or?
If it's not currently built and you decide the zoning, then you decide the zoning.
Gotcha, okay.
Go ahead, Angel.
So what is the current zoning then, that green color?
That's agricultural.
Okay, so to have anything else built there, it has to come to us. How do cities go about deciding whether that's better for commercial area or better for housing area? Are there studies, things like that go into that?
That's exactly what we're doing. That's the study that we're about
Okay.
to do.
And how many acres is that? The green on the,
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh,
okay.
Lot?
Okay.
a lot, yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any questions? Item G.
The next item, staff is getting ready to start the budget process for next fiscal year. So this evening, staff is going to share with the council the objectives that each department will be focusing on for fiscal year 2023 to meet the council's goals and strategic vision plan priorities. We welcome you to ask questions and to share feedback that you might have. We're going to start with the citizen services, and the first, and I'm just kind of going in budget order of the departments that are how they're laid out in the budget book. So the first one is the legislative department, and that department passes and amends ordinances, makes decisions on zoning map and text amendments, does conditional uses, makes decisions on special use permits, planned unit developments, preliminary and final plats, vacations of streets or reservations, and appeals on site plan reviews, and creates the city's strategic vision. So that is actually the council. If you don't have any questions on that, the senior center is next. Andrea?
The Belton Senior Center provides daily services for Northern Cass County senior residents, primarily those who are low income. A meal is provided each day at no charge to the individual. There are also monthly and weekly programs on Medicare, fraud prevention, computer basics, nutrition and exercise classes, self-care, as well as bingo and other social activities. The Belton Senior Center receives an annual operating grant from the Mid-America Regional Council. The MARC Department of Aging provides programming support as well. The City Clerk's Department provides local oversight to the Belton Senior Center and the Center Coordinator. These services provided by the Belton Senior Center support public safety and also quality of life.
Go ahead.
Okay, so maybe my definition of the objectives is different. Is this just kind of an overview of what they do, or are there specific goal objectives for the department that they're attempting to achieve that are measurable to see if they're meeting those goals?
Yes, MARC provides us certain programming goals that we have to reach each year. Each month there's certain activities that are laid out. Bobby, the coordinator, she gets to choose which activities and how often she wants to do them, but at the end of the year, to receive that grant, we do have to have certain objectives met.
Go ahead.
Senior Center's been open for about, 3 months now? Has that been going good over there, or?
Yes, we're averaging between 15 and 20 people each day. It
Are
was
we-
around 25 when we had to shut down last year, so it's getting close to
We
being
still
back.
delivering meals, or is that all done now?
You can only either home deliver meals or have congregate meals. So since our center is a congregant center where they come to eat the meals there, all of the people who stayed on home delivery were transferred over to Mid-America Regional Council, and they're handling those individuals.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
The next one is the municipal court. The municipal court hears and determines all cases involving alleged violations of ordinances of the city and assesses punishment by fine or incarceration for violations. This department helps support the city council's ordinances related to public safety, quality of life, and beautification strategic vision pillars.
Any questions?
Dave is actually having his first grandchildren tonight. They're twins. They're born tonight, so I'm going to take the inspection department. The inspection department provides quality plan review for building code compliance and detailed field inspections and code enforcement to support the city's beautification and residential improvements pillar and quality of life pillar of the council's long-term strategic vision.
Okay, I'm gonna sound like a broken record. So are there specific goals and things like that within each department underneath these? This is just like the description of what they do?
Well, they're going out and they're making sure, ensuring compliance with the city's the council's code of ordinances. So the council sets all of the laws. The council is actually who is setting what staff is going to do. And then staff is going out and they're making that happen for you.
Maybe it's from being a teacher, but I guess my thought is that whenever we set goals, that they're specific and measurable, as where kind of what we're reading seems more to be a descriptive of, you know, this is what they do, but there's not anything really measurable to know how well they're doing with that. Does that make sense? Is there another area that that is done in, or we just traditionally do like these descriptors?
I guess I'm not really sure what you're asking for. How would you like it to be different?
Not necessarily that I'm saying it needs to be different. I'm just trying to understand as far as being objectives to me are more, these are specific objectives and this is how we know if we're meeting them or not. So like if a specific objective in that, like we had talked about communication goals, things like that within each of these things, that we get a satisfaction survey of at least 75% or not, and then that shows whether we've met that goal. Do we have any specific objectives like that for our departments? Or we can actually see for sure, yes, they're meeting these or not. Because as far as what we're reading here, there's no real way other than to say, oh yeah, they wrote some tickets for codes, so yeah, they're doing their job. Or meeting those goals, not necessarily doing their job, but meeting those goals.
So I guess, are you asking, do we need to do a survey every year?
No, not necessarily the survey. That was just an example.
No, which I'm
But-
fine with. Yeah, I mean, to me, that makes sense to see where we're at, you know.
Yeah, like are objectives measurable, I guess is what I'm asking. Do we have measurable
I think-
objectives?
Well, as I understand it, it's kind of like apples and oranges. Every department should have objectives and be, as you say, graded as to how well they do those objectives. But what I think Sheila's doing, or the staff is doing, is from the strategic priorities and the pillars we came up with last summer, seeing which groups meet those pillars. So if we get all the groups in here to say the 20 or 25 pillars are there, tied all the way as, you know, a tie diagram or whatever, and we have maybe 3 pillars that aren't met by anybody, then we may have a problem. But this is just the surface. I think what you're talking about is something a little deeper than just tying these talks to the pillars. Is that kind of what where you're going to?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I guess as one of the things I hear about that department is just the turnaround time. So I don't know if that's something that we need to look at as adding someone in there that can help speed up the permit process. I've heard sometimes that people takes over a week to 30 days to get a permit pulled for a basic house. And they always tell me in other communities it doesn't go that long. So I don't know if that's us changing how we do it or us having an extra person in there to make it easier to get them. And I'm assuming with a lot of houses being built and other stuff being built, they're being overrun. So maybe having an extra person in there could help alleviate some of that.
I wonder if the council would be interested in actually having a work session so we could kind of explain the process to you for permits so that you could see if it actually, sometimes when somebody says something, maybe they're not presenting all of the facts. So a lot of times our permits are dependent on giving comments back
In
to.
case you've never been a city council member before, I'll let you know. You have the resident telling you something, and you have the employee telling you something, and somewhere there's the truth in the middle.
Sure.
And we got to try to figure that out. But yes, I'd love to have the knowledge on actually how a permit goes through and the process they look at.
Yes. And always, please, if you hear something, a specific concern from a resident or from a business owner or an applicant or anything like that, please reach out to the department head, because they'll be able to give you the facts surrounding that so that you can, exactly as you said, piece the information. Because a lot of times, sometimes the plan isn't submitted to exactly
I mean, each one of
what we need.
us gotten emails over the last couple years, or there, I think one came out this year, just talk about permit process, and I spoke to, I think we got an email back just saying what's going on, permits weren't paid and stuff. So, I mean, there's stuff that happened. That's why I said, I mean, but I think just learning about the process when someone drops off plans, where does it go and how does it go, would be a nice planning meeting, just so we can learn about how they do their job.
Yeah.
To
If the mayor
piggyback,
agrees with me.
Yeah, perfect.
to piggyback on that thought of we do get these emails where it says, why is it taking me 2 months to get a permit for my house? And like you said, a lot of times it's because they didn't do specific steps. That is part of why I suggested the app that I did before, several months ago, is that would all be placed in the app. So then when this person contacts us, we could look it up right then. And it's usually not even by email. It's usually, for me, it's when I'm in the grocery store and somebody comes up to me and they're like, Angela, oh, by the way, I meant to talk to you about blah, 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 blah. Why is this happening? And I'm in the middle of the grocery store trying to pick out soup. And if I had that app, I could real quick pull that up and go, oh, okay, it says here that they're still waiting on you to fill out the blah, 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 blah form. Things like that might help expedite, because I know I send you guys tons of emails that I'm getting from people that are like asking about streets. When is my street getting done? When is my curb getting done? And that app is just something that could help expedite all of that for us so that we don't have so much back and forth. Just putting that out there. Thank you.
Well, Dave has done an admirable job of filling in, but part of the problem with permits, time-wise, is we don't have a building officer. We haven't had one for about a year now, so. And that's what the building officer does.
That will help tremendously. Anything else? Oh, yeah.
The next department is the Animal Control Department, and Chief Lyons will talk about that.
I did animal control, emergency management, police, and jail, and kind of mixed it in. The police department, most of our strategic priorities, or all of them, are located in the pillar of public safety. Under number 1 in that category was reduce criminal activities, ordinance violations in our city. And A was increase police and animal control visibility in the community. B was enhance the usage of community-oriented policing strategies for police officers and the animal control officer. C was stay abreast of emerging technologies and/or best practices to leverage police and animal control and emergency management services more effectively. D, enhance in-service training for police staff in contemporary policing issues such as use of force, de-escalation, etc. And E was enhance the capabilities of our criminal investigations unit in homicide, domestic violence, sexual assault, and narcotics, and forensic examination of electronic devices such as smartphones, computers. Number 2 in that category was maintain and expand the capacity of the police department to serve a growing population. A, conduct staffing and service needs assessment related to the police department to include patrol, detention, and animal control. B was pursue grant opportunities and/or collaborations in pursuit of mental health co-responder program with a community mental health provider. C was increase the number of police officers, jail detention officers, dispatchers, and educate them on how to deal more effectively with the mentally ill, whether it's mental health first aid or basic crisis intervention training. And then 3 was, in that pillar, was educate the public about the city's public safety departments, and we intend to leverage social media, neighborhood watch meetings, and community events to better educate the public on such issues as,
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know if he was done or not.
Oh, okay.
My questions are going backwards. We have a couple last budgets, and I know you're fairly new, but how close are we to being fully staffed on as police department? And last budget cycle, we added some extra dispatchers and didn't know if we actually filled those positions. If we have, how has that worked out for the police and fire departments?
During the last budget, we added 5 police officers and I believe 2 dispatchers. We were 1 dispatcher down, however, 1 is leaving us and then going to become a part-time. So we'll be 2 down in about 2 weeks. And we went from 5 officers in the last budget openings. We're down to 4. We have 2 in the police academy right now. And then we're also short in the area of detention officers and a building maintenance worker. Most of our efforts in regards to dispatchers, jailers, and police officers is a lot related to the current climate in regards to policing. Very hard to get candidates. I've been keeping abreast of some of the metropolitan agencies, and there's not very many people wanting to come into this line of work. We have had people that have left and went to agencies where they get paid more. We know of 1 police officer right now that's being recruited by a neighboring agency, and it's related to pay and benefits.
Anybody else have any questions?
Next is the Economic Development Department. Carolyn?
Good evening. The economic development priorities for fiscal year 2023 meet the City Council's goals and strategic vision plan. The priorities include continuing to market the City of Belton to its citizens, the Kansas City metropolitan area, and beyond as a city that provides small-town charm with big city amenities via social media channels, newsletters, print advertising, and press releases, business retention and expansion, collaborating with existing businesses to identify their needs and coordinate effective responses to those needs, business attraction, attracting commercial and industrial businesses in a concerted effort to diversify our economy, bring capital investment, create new high-paying jobs for our citizens, and continue to work towards the development of Marquee Business Park, continue to work with regional partners such as the Missouri Partnership and the Kansas City Area Development Council in responding to RFIs or competing for projects. As far as workforce development goes, continuing to work with Cass County Workforce Collaborative, the Cass County Corporation for Economic Development, the Belton School District and their Ford NGL program, higher education partners, and local employers. Beautification and residential improvements through the Old Town Belton Chapter 353 and the redevelopment of the North Scott Corridor. These goals directly align with 3 of the top priorities that were listed in the strategic planning and visioning session that we had. And the top 3, or those 3 priorities are beautification and residential development, diverse economic development, and quality of life.
Any questions? Go ahead.
What percent of is your budget funded by the hotel tax?
Correct.
Is it 100%?
Correct.
And how did that affect us last year during COVID when they were shut down for a while? Has it hurt us at all?
It has hurt it, yes, it has.
Okay. Thank you.
However, I was doing the revenue projections for this year and next, and we have rebounded.
Anybody else?
The next is the fire department with Chief Sapp.
Okay, fire department really exists for three primary reasons for us. First and foremost, that's to respond to emergencies or what is perceived as emergencies. So ambulance calls, fires, hazmat, whatever that may be. And so we're constantly having to make sure that we're trained and ready as well as responding and go to those. The next is a prevention slash public education role where we, pre-COVID consisted of lots of tours of the station or visits to schools and educating on fire safety and EMS safety and such as that. And then the third leg is the code slash, growth and the enforcement arm of that. So review of plans when new businesses come in or if there's a change of business. And then that ongoing inspection program to make sure that they're complying and doing what they're supposed to according to the codes. And so all of those fall really well into your pillar of, of the public safety services. And specifically, for me, I'm kind of glad you guys made it so easy because what you asked for in those pillars are things that we think about constantly already and are always trying to figure out how to improve on. And that's keeping pace with the growth in call volume, which as we look at that over the last several years, it almost always goes up. We've had a few years where it dwindled down a little, but with the development we're having, we're anticipating that to continue to grow. And so we already continuously look internally. How do we improve what we're doing with what we already have while we're also looking at how do we expand our personnel in order to keep up with those calls. The other part was educating the public on exactly what it is we do. And again, that's been very tough in the last year and a half. Not able to make public presentations, not having meetings. It was kind of nice to have. The Crime Watch group the other day had one out at Wallace Park. So it was kind of nice just to be back out in public talking to folks. And so we've also kind of tried to expand our social media. I have to admit we don't have a lot of good specialists at that, and especially don't have specialists on the admin side of that. So there's a small group of us that try to keep up with that, but we're really looking at how we leverage that better and we become more, not transparent, but just produce more information through our Facebook pages, through utilizing the city's website a little bit better, as well as trying to find other ways to expand that.
Go ahead.
I know the other day, one of your goals you said was to add a third ambulance to our mix next year during the budget cycle. Is that something that you?
It always is. So we have right now, if we have enough staff that if they're all there, or if 13 out of the 14 are there, we can run 3 ambulances now. And that's if we can have them here. We had a little bit of mechanical issues on our ambulances, but I predict we only run that about 30 to 40% of the time with the third ambulance. One more person per shift, which is what we've been shooting for. I think we're going to be able to hopefully swing that, is that we bring that third ambulance into service 75 to 80% of the time. And so that gives quicker transport service to our citizens, as well as not having to rely on our neighboring departments, because we use mutual aid, and so it's not uncommon between fire departments to have to trade back calls every once in a while, but I don't want it to start becoming a habit where we have to count on them to come take care of our citizens.
Anybody else?
Next is the golf department. Jay?
The golf department operates and maintains the city's golf course to support the city council's quality of life, economic development, and beautification pillars of the long-term strategic vision. The objectives and the goals for the golf course are outlined in the annual budget that you receive every year. So those measurables that you were asking about, those are the revenues and expenditure line items that you would see. So that's how we're obviously judging our performance to those goals and objectives. And that would be the outline that changes each year depending on what goals you all would like to see us do, but also just the cost of doing business and how that continues to rise. So we would be changing those revenues to match what our expenditures would be.
Any questions?
Next is the park department. Brian?
The park department operates and maintains the High Blue Wellness Center, our 6 walking trails across the city, and 8 parks to support the city council's quality of life and beautification strategic vision pillars. We also partner with the street department to continue to beautify the 163rd Street median and downtown Main Street Belton. And just so you know, the next few years, probably the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to begin developing our next master plan. So as far as we move into the budget, as you all are aware, the COVID effect on our revenues was huge. But we also have some aging infrastructures that we're trying to focus, and Kevin Feeback and I, our park superintendent, we're trying to prioritize right now, heading into the budget, what trails that need to be addressed. The High Blue Wellness Center, we just celebrated our 20-year anniversary, the north side of it. The Aquatic Center, although it's only 10 years old, with the indoor chemical exposure, it looks like it's 30 years old. So we've definitely are focused on maintaining our existing infrastructure.
Any questions for the park?
Next is Greg with the street department.
Basically, the next several of them are all public works. And when you look at the pillars that we have, infrastructure is one of the pillars, and it's our main goal. But if you notice, every one of the pillars basically public works affects, because we affect economic development, we affect public safety, we affect just everything that goes on in the city, for better or for worse. And so the street department, is basically one of their objectives is to maintain streets and keep the quality of the streets the same. Streets, when I talk about streets, it includes curbs, it includes the ramps, it includes the signs, the striping, everything that goes with it. So I use a generic term of streets. You don't just think it's just asphalt only. It's everything that goes along with it. The same thing with water. We're supposed to be maintaining our water. Our objective is always to maintain water to people's homes, have safe, clean water to everybody, and to keep our pipes to the length of their useful life, to keep them going. And that's the work that we do every day, supplying water. Wastewater is the same way. We're trying to keep the pillars, to keep everything within capacity, because if we go outside of capacity, we have backups. And so our job in wastewater is to keep going and trying to make sure that that infrastructure is running. If it needs changes, needs improvements, it's our job to find it and try to get those changes made. On the second side, you want me to go ahead? Public Works also does support. We also support other departments. And when it says Public Works there, it really means engineering. Our engineering group plans, designs, and constructs infrastructure with the capital dollars that we have. We also review plans and designs and inspect other people, so developers, when they bring in plans for what they want to do. And so that's part of our job, to make sure all the things that are turned in are built so there's public safety in those items, they're built correctly, and they're long-lasting assets for the city. But we also, Public Works also supports the first three. They support streets, our street department, they support our water department, they support our wastewater department when they need engineering help. The engineering group goes out and supports them in whatever needs to be taken care of. And they do those items. One other thing that's important that all these groups do is they also all support our snow and ice control program. You don't think about that 9 months of the year, but trust me, I do. And so next week we're doing our dry run for snow removal. So you'll see our trucks out with plows on, with spreaders on, and they'll be driving around. You're going to think, what are these crazy people doing? Well, every year we have new drivers, new people, new routes, and so we want to make sure everyone's familiar with what's going on. But that is something that people forget about until it snows, and we're there. The last one is garage operations. We do run a vehicle maintenance facility, and that does maintain all the vehicles that we have except for the big fire trucks. We take care of all the police cars. If there's any vehicle out there, we do the maintenance to them. We try to take care of everything and maintain everything in the best quality that we can. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Next is the administration. So the administration department supports the legislative department. So it supports all of you by providing staff support, organizational development, and preparing the annual proposed budget to work towards implementing your strategic vision. Any questions?
Yeah, the next is the law department, which the law department includes myself, the city attorney, the city prosecutor, and any other special counsel that is engaged by the city. As all of you know, the main goal of the law department is to advise both the city council, the elected officials, the boards and commissions, and the administrative staff on the actions that they are taking that will further the strategic vision of the city council.
The city clerk office is next. Andrea?
The city clerk's office maintains the records of the city. The top 3 tasks of the department are management of records and archives of the city, including ordinances, resolutions, minutes, requests for records, and local elections. Also ensuring business licensing and liquor licensing is processed consistent with the Code of Ordinances and the Missouri Revised Statutes, and providing oversight for the Belton Senior Center. These general duties of the city clerk's office support diverse economic development, public safety, and quality of life.
Go ahead.
Will our new software allow a business license to be done online and paid online?
Yes.
Good.
I don't mean, I gotta show that I have a green card or whatever, that I paid my taxes. I mean, will you guys look that up, or how do I verify that?
We would prefer if you still bring in your own documentation. But yes, we can look it up for you. Just
But
on
I
the
could
county
email it
website.
to you also, right? And just say, here's my,
Scan it and attach it, I would think.
Yeah.
yeah, I can upload it.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but is there a reason the senior center falls under city clerk instead of parks?
It's a department of the city rather than a department specifically of the park department.
Gotcha, okay, just feels like a little bit of a wonky fit. Thought I'd ask if that's just how it's always been done, or if there was something specific.
It seems like it's always been in a park building, even when it was at the community center, it's always been there, but I don't know if the parks ever ran it.
I mean, the programming is not totally dissimilar than what Parks does for younger folks in town, so just wanted to pose that question.
Thank you.
When it first came to the city, it was under administration, and then about 5-ish years ago, it got switched to under the city clerk's office. And it has always been located at one of the park buildings.
Well, not quite. It was in the old city hall, in the back of the old city hall, the meals program.
Really?
Yeah.
Before it came to the city, maybe?
No, I don't know about that, but it was there. I mean, we're still selling plaques that commemorate that.
Wow.
Well, not selling, we're probably giving them away now.
The next is Information Technology Department, and this department supports all the city departments by assisting with their technology and technical needs. We kind of have 2 areas. The police department has their own IT department, and then the IT department that is housed at City Hall services all of the departments except for the ones at the police station, so does not service the court or the police department. And then the finance department supports all the departments in meeting their objectives through accounts payable, payroll, accounts receivable, cash management, and financial reporting. And then I don't know if you guys have any questions about that. And then the last department is the Community Planning Department. The Planning Department provides administrative support for the Planning Commission and oversight of the implementation of the City Council's planning and zoning ordinances, which meets the Council's beautification, quality of life, and economic development pillars.
Any questions on any of that? Thank you. I know that was a lot of work. Thank you. All right, H.
The last item we have is talking about the 2020 census data and the ward boundaries, and Andrea's going to pass information out to all of you.
And while Andrea's doing that, I can kind of start to discuss some of the legal parameters that the city council is to consider when redrawing the ward maps. First and foremost, the charter requires that the city council adopt new ward maps after the census. It does not state a specific timeline, just says after. I would suggest that the city council move to adopt new ward maps prior to council filing, so that people can know whether or not which ward they are intending to represent. In White versus Register, the Supreme Court essentially set down the parameters for populations in the separate wards. It's usually shorthanded as 10% deviation, but that 10% deviation is reached through a series of just kind of quick formulas, and I'm gonna kind of go through it based on the current ward maps, which I believe you might have a copy of. I have a copy of it, so if anybody has a question, I can bring it up to them. But so the first thing that you do is you take the total population divided by the number of districts. That gets you what's called your ideal district. An ideal district after the 2020 census in Belton is 5,988. That and a quarter. I don't know how we get a quarter of a person, so I just rounded down. So that is an ideal perfect district. Next, you determine what is your max percentage over. That is determined by taking the largest district, which right now is Ward 4 with 6,388 citizens, or residents, sorry, and subtract that by the ideal district, and then divide that number by the ideal district, and that gives you what percentage that district is over your ideal. Right now, Ward 4 is 6.7% over the ideal district. Next, you determine your max under district. That is determined by taking the ideal district minus the smallest district, which right now is Ward 2 with 5,769 people, and then dividing that number again by the ideal district. Your max under right now is 3.7%. Then to determine your total variation, you add your max over and your max under, which is 6.7 plus 3.7, which gets you 10.4% as your total variation, which is above the approved 10%. So there will need to be some changes in the current ward maps based on the latest census. Obviously, based on just kind of the populations that are there right now, it would appear that Ward 4 would have to be decreased by a certain number, and that could be distributed to the other wards. The reason why you go through this analysis is to ensure that there is one person, one vote, because when you have significantly higher districts, like right now with Ward 4, those people are underrepresented, while you then have Ward 2, which would be technically overrepresented. And so those are kind of the parameters in going through this analysis. And I had to triple check my math because I am an attorney, specifically not an accountant, and I hate numbers. And if there are any questions, I think there are some proposed maps in front of you too.
Well, everything in front of us is what it's currently is.
Okay. I guess my question to you, Patrick, is knowing that Ward 4 already is over 6% and probably 90% of the growth today is also in Ward 4. I mean, how do we shrink that?
So that would be
Put into rules, but also give it the availability to grow. And so instead of being over in 2 years, they're going to be right at that number.
So that would be, if that is a consideration the council would like to give, that would then mean you would ideally attempt to bring Ward 4 down to to be the smallest ward based on the 2020 census, with the knowledge that obviously that is where the two apartment complexes are going, and that is where considerable growth is occurring right now. Under the charter and just the Constitution of the United States, you are not obligated to continuously update your ward maps. Now, that doesn't say that you couldn't, but most cities and political subdivisions instead just draw them once and set those as for the next 10 years.
Well, just even like all the subdivisions being built, I mean, they got traditions, they got like meadows.
Yeah, a suggestion and something that could also be done, and I've seen it occur. There are we represent some clients that have some very large growth areas.
So what's the lowest number they can have?
So you can't figure that number until you know what the biggest one's going to be.
Okay.
So there's enough variables at play that you will need to look at what's your largest one after redrawing it and what's your smallest one after redrawing it. And obviously what could occur is while the districts or the wards have to be compact, you could include some of those growth areas into another district or ward, or you could, in anticipation of that significant growth that I think everybody is reasonably anticipating in Ward 4, you could, again, make it the smallest ward at this time with the knowledge that in 2 years, the next municipal election after the 2021 election, it'll be back to being the largest ward at that time period.
And it won't change for another 8 years, but you're saying we could?
You
You're
could
saying we could change that?
You could realistically do it. I don't know of any cities that do it just because you don't have census data. You're instead basing it off of the ACS and kind of.
That's probably why they do it every 10 years.
I just typically know we do it every 10 years, so that's why I try to figure out how we can drop them down the lowest.
Yeah, and
because we know that's where the growth is.
The reason why everybody does it at 10 years is because that is the only time that you have hard verifiable data. Every other time, the ACS and all those other estimates are simply estimates and projections. They don't have census takers walking around the wards every year seeing who's new and who's not.
And when do we have to have this done by?
As I suggested, I would have it done prior to the opening of candidate filings,
Okay.
which you will have an ordinance. What date is the new December 7th?
December 7th, she said, yeah.
So obviously we should, have probably if the council would like another work session at the next meeting with potential maps based on some of the discussion that's occurred here tonight. And then that can be further delineated in the two discussions of ordinances approving those maps in.
I guess another criteria, you can't, I hate to use this word, gerrymander a ward person out of their ward, correct?
Well, so.
I mean, what if Ward 3 is, what if the best way to fit this is make me in Ward 3? What would that do?
So I have not run into that issue in my current time. I will say that the term gerrymandering in and of itself is not illegal. It is like political gerrymandering, for example, is not illegal. It is gerrymandering based on some discriminatory purpose is what rises to that level. And obviously that is something else that the council could take into consideration when drawing its new maps, ensuring that council members or whatever do not change wards.
All right. Any more questions?
And if you guys want, I think I saw most of you jotting down the
if you got
the formulas. I can send those out so that if you all want to take a look at them.
And it can't be more than 10%, right?
So again, total variation can't be more than 10%, which you reach via that kind of tree of formulas. I say formulas. Sheila probably doesn't think they're actual formulas. They're just divided bys.
Do we want to do this? Do you guys want to give me your ideas and thoughts, and then I work with staff to bring back
I
proposals?
guess my question to you is, can we not, I know in 2000, I wasn't here in 2010, but I was here in 2000, we actually had 4 council people, one from each ward, get together and kind of draw the maps up based off the information we have, and then basically presented it.
So the city council and the mayor could work to establish essentially a redistricting committee or commission. That is not unheard of. Obviously, I think most states are currently going through that right now, and I know the city of Kansas City, for example, is currently having meetings regarding redistricting in Kansas City at this time.
Is everybody okay with that? Pick one of you guys, and then we'll have a meeting and go from there. We'll do that.
We'll go.
I would also note, since Andrea did the research and went back, the boundaries have been changed in 1990 and in 2010, but we did not find a 2000 ordinance that changed the ward boundaries.
We changed the ward boundaries that stuff, Ward 4 grew up here because in 2000, we were northwest, southwest, east, or southeast, and northeast, and we changed them to numbers because Ward 4 went from the northern border to the southern border, so it's kind of hard to call that the southeast border at that time. So that's when we changed it to the numbers, was in 2000. I was involved in that one, but we did change Ward 4 back then because Ward 2 had grown, or Ward 1 has grown so much that we had to give some over to Ward 4.
And then also, just so everybody is aware, the city does have a GIS tech who is very capable at using the census data to draw maps.
That's what this last page by itself is the census tracts and the amount of people in each tract, so.
So if there are any proposed things, we will need to run those through him. So obviously, if you could get those to the mayor whenever is easiest for you all, that would be a significant help to city staff.
All right. Any questions? Please, oh, go ahead.
I guess my question to Greg is, how fast do you think that northwest corridor is going to expand? I mean, is that a 10 or 20-year project, or you think that's a 2 to 5 year project?
It'll take probably at least 3 years to get sewers up there and start building homes. So it's a longer process.
Okay.
5 to 7, maybe. All right. Yeah, you guys decide in each ward and let me know, and then I'll set up a meeting, and then we'll go from there. All right. Anything else, work session wise? All right. Adjourn the work session and call the regular meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilman Goff.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Here.
Councilmember Savage,
Here.
Councilmember Powell, Councilmember Trutzel,
Here.
Councilmember Kraft,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Goff,
Here.
Councilmember Lawson,
Here.
Councilmember Peak.
Here.
Thanks. We got a quorum. Personal appearances. A. Jan Zimmerman, public safety donation. Sorry you had to set for an hour and 20 minutes.
That's no problem, sir. Am I on? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Larkey, members of the council, for giving me this opportunity to get in front of you all tonight. My day job is as the chief of Raymore, but I also am the director of the SAFE program, which is the Surviving Spouse and Family Endowment, which is one of 4 programs under the umbrella of the Kansas City Metropolitan Crime Commission. The information that you're passing along there to the other members of the council are pictures of our first responders whose families we have supported since the program began in 2003. So you will see the real faces of the families of first responders in the 12 counties that we cover, both on the Kansas side and the Missouri side. The last couple of years have been especially devastating for us in the SAFE program. Obviously, our very first death that we had in 2020 was Chuck McCormick from West Peculiar Fire. So right here in Cass County was supported by the SAFE program. That was especially hard for our program in 2020 because we weren't able to do any fundraising activities. And our major fundraiser is Guns and Hoses, which is the boxing match between police officers and firefighters, and not being able to hold that event in 2020. And we experienced 7 deaths of first responders all throughout our 12 counties. So I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Liberty Wooster, Belton's very own EMT. Liberty, are you there?
There she is.
There she is. You all should be incredibly proud because we were able to hold Guns and Hoses this year, August 7th, down at Municipal Auditorium. And Liberty came and boxed and obviously was successful by that giant belt she's wearing. So, absolutely. give her a round of applause. And to all of the first responders who came out and participated in Guns N' Hoses this year, because this is first responders stepping up to support other first responders. The money that is raised goes directly to SAFE, and that ensures that we have adequate funds in the bank. God forbid we lose someone in the line of duty. Police, fire, or EMS are all covered by the SAFE program. But it is my absolute honor being in charge of this program. I've told Liberty I'm not going to get in the ring, so I'm happy to be in charge of the program as long as nobody punches me in the face. Again, you all should be incredibly proud of her and the commitment. It's not just the event. It's not just being at Municipal Auditorium on August the 7th. Liberty, you can probably tell them how much training.
Hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, it's impossible to measure what it takes for an individual who has a real job, you know, working for police, fire, or EMS, to make sure that they're doing all of the things that are required to be there and to make those matches safe and to make sure that they are adequately prepared to get in the ring and to compete, because we want those matches to be safe. We want them to be entertaining for the people who come and watch them. But we are so gratified by the people who, like Liberty, who are willing to step up and support other first responders. And thank you to all the other first responders from Liberty who came, or from Belton who came out to support Liberty, tonight as well, because this program supports all of those individuals, again, in those 12 counties throughout the metropolitan area. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
I would just put my 2 cents in at what a wonderful program this is with my experience in my former career. Today marks an anniversary of 5 years of Kansas City losing 2 firefighters 5 years ago, and what a wonderful program this is. And why we're talking about this is I know Diane Huckshorn has raised money for SAFE, and that's kind of why we're here to have you here tonight. So.
It is why, but I haven't seen Diane, so I'm not sure what happened there. So it was twofold to be able to promote the program, to be able to recognize Liberty for her accomplishments, but the chamber had taken it upon themselves to get donations and had asked the police and fire who we'd recommend, which this is who we recommended. So we were going to turn that donation over tonight, but I guess I'll just help get with her later and drop that off to Jan.
Well, I know where to find y'all. I'm just across the bridge, so it's not like, not like I can't come back, but
Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Do any of y'all have any questions at all about SAFE? And thank you so much, Mayor Larkey, because yes, in your former life, you have been a huge supporter of SAFE and local first responders.
And thank you for doing what you do with SAFE and
The
your
only thing
real job.
Yeah, and my other job. The only thing that's different on the brochure is we've added Buchanan County. So now we go as far north as St. Joe, and that's not indicated on the brochure that I shared with you all. So.
Other than Guns N' Hoses, how do you do other fundraisers, just like what happened here at our Fall Fest, where people donate money to the cause, or is there?
We do. We actually are very fortunate as we get the word out, and obviously education is a huge part of our program, not only for the public and people in the corporate world, but also for our first responders. We want to make sure that, God forbid, someone loses their life in the line of duty, that the benefits of SAFE and other programs go to the appropriate person in the family. So, we're always making sure that we get the information out to first responders as well. But part of that education obviously has benefited us in the respect that we have a number of third-party events. I was involved in the Shawnee Rotary. They had their fall festival and donated funds from that. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a memorial pistol match for Brandon Collins, who was a Johnson County Sheriff's deputy who lost his life in the line of duty, sadly, on September 11th. And other events like that in which the individuals, much like this, and Chief Sapp has indicated, folks want to know who they could donate their money to in order to benefit all first responders, police, fire, and EMS. And so that allows us to partner with those organizations to make sure that that money goes in the bank and is there for safe when we pay those benefits. And fortunately, the program started in 2003. I think I mentioned that benefit has increased over the years. And so now that payment that we make by our bylaws within 24 to 48 hours of the death is now $25,000. So, you know, our most recent, obviously, Blaze Madrid Evans, the Independence officer who was shot and killed several weeks ago. We didn't make it in that 24 hours, but that was out of deference to the family and allowing them to you know, process what had happened. But the benefit has increased over the years, and that is absolutely because of the support of donors and our fundraising events.
Any questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, next is B, Buckle Up, Phone Down proclamation. I'm going to read the proclamation. Mary Cummings was unable to be here, and Councilman Peak will accept it and take it back to I had him on tongue, sorry, yeah, Belton Cares. Proclamation, Buckle Up, Phone Down. Whereas the Belton Department of Transportation and Missouri Coalition for Roadway Safety are challenging the community to buckle up and put your phone down. And whereas the challenge is simple. When you get into your vehicle, buckle up your safety belt, and if you're a driver, put your cell phone down. And whereas in 2020, 987 drivers and passengers were killed in traffic crashes in Missouri. And whereas in 2020, nearly 7 out of 10 vehicle occupants killed in Missouri traffic crashes were unbuckled. And whereas since 2014, crashes involving cell phones have increased by 31%. And whereas a recent survey from AT&T shows nearly 9 out of 10 drivers admit to engaging with their smartphone while behind the wheel. And whereas employees' safety partners will make a special efforts to reach out to businesses and individuals alike by buckling up and putting your phone down. Even for one day, you'll be doing your part to make Missouri roads safer. Whereas the simple task of buckling everyone in their vehicle and choosing not to use your phone while driving can help save your life, the lives of your passengers and occupants of other vehicles. And whereas it's time to join the movement and stand up to be counted, take the challenge at mo.org. Now therefore, I, Norman K. Larkey Sr., Mayor of the City of Belton, do hereby declare Friday, October 22nd, 2021 as Buckle Up, Phone Down Day in Belton. I urge all citizens to take MoDOT's Buckle Up, Phone Down Challenge and learn more about the risks associated with cell phone use and not buckling up while driving. Yeah, that's all. So, go ahead.
Councilwoman Peak, didn't Mary Cummings' class come up with, they did something, they went down to Jeff City and
That was the year before last. Yes, they were, they received an award, her class, for all that they had done for safety with regards to buckling up and putting the phone down. They actually had, when kids drove into school, if they weren't buckled, they got a ticket. It was just, you know, to remind them to buckle up. And so, yeah, it's very popular with Belton Cares and with her class. She doesn't teach anymore.
right. I just remember they came in here and they had the big presentation about the Buckle Up, Phone Down program, and I know they went down to Jeff City as a class and they got some award for doing something. I was hoping, since you're involved with it every day, maybe you're more involved with it, you remembered it, but yeah. I just know that Mary and her students back in the day had some type of award for the Buckle Up, Phone Down program, so, thank you.
All right, consent agenda. One motion non-debatable to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Regular agenda, motion approving the first.
An ordinance of the City of Belton, Missouri, amending Chapter 2, Division 4, Personnel Code, Section 2-558A, legal holidays of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, comments, information?
The only thing that I have is that the President and Congress added a new federal holiday, and this is just being brought to the council to see if you want to add it to the city's holidays.
Councilman Clark.
I don't know. I felt like I'm not ready to add this to our agenda yet. I mean, I don't know how many holidays we currently get as a city staff. And then, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, you get someone that's been around for our city, I mean, they get 5-6 weeks vacation, and we currently probably have 20-some holidays that they get, don't they?
There are currently 14.
14, seems like 30. But I'm just not ready to add this on. I mean, I know that it took us a long time to add some other federal holidays onto our current program, and I know last year we added Truman's birthday because it's a state of Missouri holiday. So me personally, I think we need to wait on this one a while.
Councilman Savage.
Yes, I too, I will not support another holiday. I just want to say that up front. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
May I ask for clarification that was Councilmember Savage, Clark, and Goff who voted no,
I believe so.
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
B, motion approving first reading of Bill 2021-60.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Mills subdivision, a tract of land in the southwest quarter of Section 18, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
Present.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Do we have any estimate of when you're going to start widening Mullen Road?
That's a good subject. That's the TDD, and I think we're
Well, I know they're not here, but
We don't have money yet.
yeah, we're wrangling, trying to get the money figured out. And so
okay. But Craig was saying this is a key step to doing that, correct? Is that,
well, we already got this will be a key step of selling the property now
okay.
that we don't need. We got the property for the TDD that we need from this parcel, and we're replatting it, and now we can get rid of that house and put that back on the tax roll. So, any other questions?
I can only say, Councilman Powell, that's been a subject for many years. And each year I keep hearing it's going to be done, as well as 173rd Street connecting over to Cunningham Parkway. I guess we keep not having money, or somebody doesn't have the money.
Yeah, I mean, Councilman Trutzel can add to this. We're trying to get the process of refunding, what am I wanting to say? The current bondholder with refinancing the current bondholders with what the TD has done already, and trying to get them to refinance so we can get more money to work on this project. Now, I can't guarantee when that's going to happen. We're working on it, and sometime soon in the next year or two.
That was one of the subjects we talked about at the planning retreat we had, because the shoulders on the drop-off in Mullen is really dangerous, and someone's going to go off of that.
So,
The sooner it gets done, the better.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move for a
ca-
second reading.
Motion carries. We have a motion for a second reading.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion on the second reading? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. B, motion for the second reading of Bill 2021-60.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Mills subdivision, a tract of land in the southwest quarter of Section 18, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
Present.
I have
Second.
a motion and a second, and a motion and a second. Motion, second.
I heard him say present, so I went second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, can I have a roll call?
Councilmember Peak. Aye. Lawson. Aye. Savage.
Aye.
Trutzel.
Aye.
Powell.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Goff.
Aye.
Kraft.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. C, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2021-61.
An ordinance approving a special use permit to allow an electronic message center on an existing billboard sign located at 16241 South Outer Road, Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I couldn't tell from what I was reading where that sign, is it the existing sign?
It's the existing sign. They're gonna add some more electronic stuff to it.
Wasn't Belton a part of that? Did we get
That's
billing
the one
it?
on the other side of the highway. This is on the east side of the highway.
Okay,
Sorry,
Alright.
yeah.
That's not the one I was
This is on the east side of the highway,
okay,
and the one that Belton has is on the west side of the highway.
okay. Thank you.
And I know Dave is gone because of, this went through planning commission approved it. So,
I think though the flip side of this sign does say something about Belton, doesn't it? I guess we don't have a good drone to.
Hold on, we got a guy that's gonna tell us everything about it.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Chad Hager, I'm with Link Media, we own that billboard. So yes, on the north side of that billboard, it is a full electronic billboard. What we're asking for tonight is on the other side, which would be the south side, to add a fuel price box. So essentially, when you're going the highway, it would be for Quick Trip, who is the existing advertiser on there, for them to advertise the current price of fuel. It could flip between unleaded and diesel. At this point in time, they're only going to do diesel, but it could go from one to the other. We would have to meet the state regs, which is of a 8-second dwell time, so it couldn't change any quicker than 8 seconds. More than likely, fuel's not going to change that fast, so it's going to.
We hope not anyways.
Yeah. So. Yes, let's hope not. But that's what we're asking for, is to add that, and it is a 100 square foot box. So the billboard itself is 14 by 48. So it's a very small box on that larger billboard face.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move for a second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion on the second reading? Seeing none. Roll call, or I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. C, a motion approving the second reading of Bill 2021-61.
An ordinance approving a special use permit to allow an electronic message center on an existing billboard sign located at 16241 South Outer Road, Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
We have a motion and a second for the second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Trutzel,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Savage,
Aye.
Powell,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Peak.
Motion carries. City Council liaison reports.
Okay, I'll give a parks update. This last weekend was the annual car show, and they had 130 cars turn out for that. Upcoming on October 30th is Pumpkin Palooza at Memorial Park from 6 to 8 p.m. And then on Saturday, November 20th is the Holiday Craft Fair. Also, Parks Department has named Brian Wellborn as the new Director of Parks Department. You may recognize Brian from previously being the Parks Department Director. He applied and went through the interview process like the other candidates and is back. So that's the report.
Okay, all right. Mayor's communication, yes, Sheila mentioned earlier about the work session. I'm wanting to try to see everything as much as possible come through the work session process. And I know it's kind of lengthy tonight, and we're going to try to work through that. I just want to know if everybody thinks that's a good idea or not, and try to make as transparent as possible to bring everything as possible through the work session. And I know me and Patrick are working on what really needs to come and what really doesn't need to come. So it's a work in progress, so just be patient with us. So if you have any comments, questions, let me know. What else? Mayor's Christmas tree. We're doing some changes to it. We're going to move it from the park to Main Street, back to Main Street. It's going to be the 26th of November. Is that right?
The 27th.
27th. I'm sorry, I told someone 26th today. 27th. We're working on a big plan. We've had several meetings, got a big committee working on it. We actually got, we're going to have the new lighting thing that they just approved, and it's going to fold into all the vendors and the store owners, and we're going to try to use the fire station. We haven't talked to Chief Sapp about that yet, but we'll get there. For using that in case of bad weather, because that's kind of why they moved it out there, because of the cold. But I think it's going to be a good thing, and we're getting both groups together, the BCPI and the park and the Main Street merchants, trying to get it all together and work in one thing. We've actually got some reindeer for the kids to see and look at, so it's going to be a good thing. So that's all I have. So you have anything?
First, I just want to let everybody know that Andrea Cunningham, she earned the designation of Certified Municipal Clerk, which is awarded by the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. And so congratulations, Andrea.
Why didn't we do a proclamation?
I think that they're going
Then
to...
I'd have to write my own proclamation.
Yes. Yes.
And then Greg has some exciting news.
The Public Works Department is an accredited public works department through American Public Works Association. Every 4 years, you have to go through a process to be reaccredited. We've done it twice, and now we just completed our third time, and I'm just pleased to announce that we have been reaccredited as a Public Works Department again. And so it is a heavy task. People don't understand. We go through every single policy and procedure that the Public Works has. It's reviewed by outside agencies. Two other Public Works departments review it to make sure what we're doing stands up to time. And it's really helpful to our newer employees because they can just open the books and see the standard operating procedures of what we do and can just fold in and just learn as you go. And so I'm very excited and very thankful for all employees who participated and worked hard to get that reaccreditation.
Congratulations to both of you, actually. So go ahead.
That includes the water department, yes?
That's correct.
And does it go through their funding? Just to kind of see that, yes, the charges are being done correctly and the machines are in proper order to be reading, any of that?
No, it's more the policy and procedures and how we do things. It's not in the accounting and fiscal department.
Okay, so more ensuring that the policies and procedures that the water department is charging things correctly then, and maintenance is done correctly?
It's more in the maintenance and operation end.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you.
All right. Congratulations again. And I know she can do that proclamation. All right. Any other communications from City Council?
I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Oh.
We
No,
have-
go ahead. Go ahead.
Jay Kennedy has an announcement to make. to you guys.
Well, just more information. I just wanted to let the council know that we hosted the District Golf Championship for Belton High School yesterday. There were 11 teams that played at Eagles Landing. It's the first time we've hosted a district tournament for the high school, other than the weather that you all saw yesterday. So anybody that thinks golf's an easy sport, they should have been outside yesterday, because those young ladies played through Scottish Open type conditions, 50 degrees, wind blowing 30 miles an hour. But I did just want to let you know that we did work well with the school district. We thank them for recommending us to the other district schools. We were awarded that and hosted it. Everybody had a good time, and happy to say that we did have 2 Belton girls qualify for state championship. So
Good.
very excited for that. So just wanted to let the council know.
Good.
And Chief Lyon's daughter was one of the 2.
Yes, yes, she
Cool.
was.
Cool.
And then Chief Sapp?
Well, we talked about ambulances earlier, so just wanted to update you. We have had some mechanical issues on ambulances, and one of them was that the city owns 4 ambulances. One, you guys approved the refurbishment of one of them, so it's been gone for about 90 days. So we'll pick that up tomorrow to finally get back up to 3, and we've kind of had another one down for an extended amount of time. We hope to have it back next week. Kind of more of those COVID-related problems. You can't find parts for vehicles, so.
And the final thing that I have is just to let you all know that the water line at the police station, that project is actually taking place on Friday. So we'll get that done.
Anything else? Go ahead, Dave.
We had a Crime Watch meeting, and I just wanted to thank Chief Sapp, Chief Lyons, and Lieutenant Davis for coming out and speaking to the residents over there in Ward 1. Wasn't greatly attended, but anybody that shows up to show interest in our community, and I think each and every one of the staff members that came had some great information for the members of our community. So just wanted to thank them publicly for coming out on a Sunday and talking to the community.
I would like to second that. I was going to say it also. Thanks, Dave. If nothing else, I enjoyed getting to know Chief Sapp and Lyons and Lieutenant Dan a little bit better, and it's very helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any communication from any other council member? Seeing that, motion to enter an executive session, discuss matters pertaining to leasing, purchasing, and sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2, and to discuss matters pertaining to the hiring, firing, discipline, or promotion of personnel according to Missouri State Statute 610.2021.3, and to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.12, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Peak. Aye. Trutzel.
Aye.
Kraft.
Aye.
Savage.
Aye.
Powell.
Aye.
Goff.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Lawson. Aye. Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion approved. Stand adjourned.